Mr. President, was there an intelligence failure in the lead up to this attack? Mr. President, can you tell us what TV asked you specifically for support?
John, this was a massive intelligence failure. Who bears responsibility for that?
You know something, Jackie? There's going to come a time when it's appropriate for us to take a look back retrospectively and see what the intel picture showed us or didn't show us, whether there's any gaps that need to be closed. There's going to be a time for that, and I suspect that our Israeli counterparts will do the same thing. Now's not that time. It's just not that time.
At this point, you cannot turn on your phone or go on TV without seeing news about Hamas, Israel, all the tragic. Some of you have seen the video with the father walking around with his daughter in Palestine, and all the stuff that's going on in Israel, and so many questions coming up. It was like, hey, how did Israel, some say the greatest air force in the world, how did you not know this was taking place? Don't you have the best intelligence in the world, Mossad? You mean to tell me for 1 year, Hamas built a city identical to the one that you have to prepare and train on how to attack, but you didn't know that this was taking place?
But, Mr. Secretary, do you acknowledge that both Israeli intelligence officials and U.S. intelligence officials were caught off guard here?
This is an attack that I don't think anyone saw coming in the immediate.
So was it an intelligence failure, Mr. Secretary? Do you acknowledge it was an intelligence failure?
We will have plenty of time to. The Israelis will have plenty of time to look into that. All of us will have time to look into that. The focus now has to be on making sure that Israel has what it needs to deal with this attack, and to make sure that its citizens are safe and secure. That's the entire focus.
Young 19 or 20-year-olds with automatic machine guns walking the streets. I mean, at a coffee shop, at a bar, at a restaurant. It is without a doubt the most militarized country that I've ever been to. Maybe the most militarized country in the world. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's other Arab countries that are more militarized. And so there's something wrong here. It is a country built as a fortress. I don't know what that thing wrong is, but there's more to the story, and we're going to learn it at some time. Maybe the Israeli government was double-crossed. Maybe they had intelligence about this. We don't know, but let's just go through the facts here.
We heard from the administration. There seems to have been a failure of intelligence as well. We're not quite sure how we missed it. We're not quite sure how Israel missed it. We know that Egypt had warned the Israelis 3 days prior that an event like this could happen. We know that this had been planned perhaps as long as a year ago.
Behind the scenes, Hamas was busy training soldiers, stocking up weapons and rockets, even building mock Israeli settlements for practice, the ones we just told you about. How did Israel miss all of this? Well, according to some officials, they did not. Apparently, Israel did have information about these weapons. Unfortunately, they could not connect the dots. They failed to realize that it was all meant for one single attack. Other reports say Egypt also warned them. They cautioned Israel about an impending attack, and once again, Israel ignored it. In other words, this attack was preventable. But let's forget intelligence for now. Let's also focus on what else could have gone wrong. For starters, the technology. It went wrong for sure. Israel and Gaza are separated by a massive barrier. It is made up with 140,000 tons of iron and steel. The total cost of building this was $1.1 billion. Israel called it the Iron Wall. Around 65 kilometers of this wall is underground, so no tunneling business either. You had hundreds of cameras, sensors, and command posts. The idea was to prevent all types of attacks. But look at what happened on Saturday. Hamas bulldozed through the Iron Wall. They literally cut the fencing wire in some places. What happened to the cameras and sensors?
This is a massive intelligence failure on the part of American intelligence, and especially on the part of the Israeli intelligence services. They had absolutely no idea this was coming. They transferred 3 battalions from the Gaza front to the West Bank to protect settler rampages against Palestinians, denuding the towns on the southern borders of the Gaza Strip of the people who could have defended against the attack by Hamas. This was one of the great deception operations in modern military history, and people are going to teach this. Leaving aside the war crimes, they're going to teach this in military academies for years and years to come. This is on level with the 1973 war in terms of deception, and an entirely mistaken concept on the part of Israelis, thinking that you could do this to Gaza forever and that they would just lie down and take.
But it seems to me that this was either, a massive intelligence fail or it was orchestrated. I mean, give me your quick thoughts on that before we go into the specifics.
Chris, I'm having a hard time accepting the fact that it could have been that massive of an intel failure. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, have an incredible intelligence agency. Israel has an incredible intel agency. We have 16 intelligence agencies. I really don't understand how it possibly could be Gaza Strip is able to plan this complex mission, getting all this training and weapons and advice from Iran, all that traffic going back and forth, the weapons coming back and forth, and for us to miss it. And another thing is, on a holiday, I've been overseas for a lot of holidays, especially like dates like 9/11. That's when your preparation and your alertness is the highest, because you think we're going to be hit, because terrorists love to use, significant dates to do their attacks. And the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, I mean, that's a significant date. And for them to have their guard down and to be asleep at the wheel, I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe a terrorist organization like Hamas and Hezbollah up north can attack Israel without any warning, with Israel not knowing it was going to come in. Something's beyond that, I believe.
There's one element of this that nobody's talking about. What the hell went wrong with U.S. and Israeli intelligence and the Israeli defense that allowed this to happen? Everybody seems to be punting that as a question for later. I think it's a question for now, if you're Israel. I mean, look, I think that Nikki Haley, I disagree with you a little bit there. I don't think she's a child. I think that she is somebody who is, like many politicians, in a position to get wealthier from war. Look at the military contracting business and otherwise. But put that to one side. The message that I would send would be very different. Get to the bottom of what allowed this gaping hole of intelligence and defense to even happen before feeding that same beast. If a doctor told you his job was to keep you from getting cancer and then you got that cancer, don't go trust that same doctor to remove your tumor. They don't let airplanes, when they crash, the pilots or the people who crash the airplane, that airliner is not the one who reviews the black box. And so I think those answers have to come now. That's not a question for later.
It's a great question. It's a question I've been pondering for a while, and it seems as though I'm not alone, as some former Israeli soldiers are apparently asking the same questions.
תקשיבו רגע, אני שירתתי כסמב"צית חי"ר במהלך מלחמת צוק איתן, אני שירתתי באוגדת עזה. כל השירות שלי היה תומכת לחימה בזמן מלחמת צוק איתן שעזה הייתה באוגדת עזה. תקשיבו לי ותקשיבו לי טוב. אין מצב בעולם שיכולה להיות כזאת התקרבות לגדר, אוקיי? מבלי שאנחנו לא נדע מזה. התצפיתניות יושבות בבונקרים 4 שעות, הן לא יכולות לעשות ככה. הן מול מסך. לא יכול להיות מצב, שום מצב, שהיו מעירים אותי בלילה על יונה, על חסידה שהתקרבה לגדר, על מקק שעבר מתחת לגדר, היו מקפיצים את כל הגזרה. איך נכנסו עם טרקטורים, 400 איש ואף אחד לא שם לב.
Now, obviously, I don't speak Hebrew. I can't even confirm to you that what just played was Hebrew, but supposedly, according to what I've been able to gather, based on the information available to me, is that apparently the translation is accurate, and so the question is, how was there such a catastrophic intelligence failure? It comes right back to the same point.
First question, how was Hamas able to do this? This is a massive intelligence and security failure for Israel.
Indeed, it is. In speaking with contacts in Israel today, have made it clear that there was an intelligence failure at absolutely every level of the government. Internal security, external security, police, IDF, just a massive, massive failure. This is not the first time, obviously, that Hamas has tried to infiltrate into Israel. Over previous attempts, they clearly came to understand weaknesses in Israeli fortifications and have been able to undertake this rather extraordinary attack from air, land, as well as sea.
Crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall we had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war.